Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Darren Ganji with my good buddy,
Sean Cole.
And today we have yet another racing rig review. And this one comes to us from illusionmotorsports.com, and it's the Pegasus GTP. We have it sitting right behind us here.
And it goes for $229. That does not include the seat, and it also doesn't include shipping. And right now they're only shipping to the United States as well.
So depending on where you live is going to depend on how much it costs. Coming from Florida.
Yeah.
So if you're in California or on this side of the country, we're on the West Coast side.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be a little more expensive than if you're right in Florida.
Exactly. And you might notice right off the bat, this resembles the DIY, the PVC, the simulator rig that we did a review on. And it does resemble it, but it's a little bit different in both design and the materials.
Exactly.
And actually that kind of takes us to the specs.
Yeah, might as well get to the box cover stuff. The length is 59 inches, width is 23.5 inches, and the total weight is 35 pounds, not including the steering wheel or the seat.
Right.
Adjustable steering height, 23.5 inches to 27.5 inches.
It's made of robust 42 millimeter solid wall monolithic tubing, which is more consistent dimensionally than co-extruded dual layer tubing, which I think is PVC, typical PVC tubing.
Yeah, I'm assuming it is too.
It's enhanced with impact modifiers, adding tremendous strength to weight bearing and structural applications, and conforming to the ASTM standards.
Now, do you know what ASTM is?
I do not.
Well, I looked it up, and the ASTM standards is formerly known as the American Society for Testing and Materials, is a globally recognized leader in the development and delivery of internationally voluntary consensus standards. So it's a type of standard. There's over 12,000 ASTM standards.
So that's basically vouching for its strength.
Exactly. Both tubing and couplings have high impact thresholds. Couplings have extra depth sockets and tapered ends for increased stability of the assemblies, adding an overall visual enhancement to the simulator. Black high gloss molded color finish is virtually carefree.
That is true, and I do like the way the ends of the PVC are. Like the PVC one, well, this tubing, our PVC had sort of those sharp, rough edges, and this is much cleaner there.
It's, yeah, more refined, I would say, and cleaner. Not as thick or strong, it seems, as our PVC, but in this application, it's definitely seems like it's doing the job.
I think the strength is there, it's the rigidity that's not.
Right.
The dominant design feature is a rigid, minimal flex, adjustable, articulating wheel deck and universal platform that allows the customer to custom mount his seat to his preferred driving position.
Yep, that sounds accurate.
That's what we did.
Yep.
The chassis comes 95% pre-assembled and requires only 6 screws and approximately 5 minutes to complete the assembly. Now, that's not including the seat, and you did it. 6 minutes?
If I knew exactly what I was doing and the instructions were a little more clear, I mean, based on the number tags that were on there, we'll talk about it more in the second half of the show, but it was very simple to assemble. It wasn't tough at all. The hardest part was the seat, for sure. Also offered is an optional customizable left or right shift mount for the G25/G27, which he included for the review, and we've got it attached here. And that gear shift mount goes for an additional 29 bucks.
Okay, now they do offer seats, so if you don't want to order your own, they have a polyethylene seat that goes for $89. It's a molded seat. They also have a black quilted seat cover for $49 that goes on that, makes it a little more cozy. They also have, well, you mentioned the gear shift. So the way we have ours, we have our good old reliable seat, which we value at what, 100 bucks?
Yeah, I paid a little bit more than that, but man, that thing's actually probably worth about 50 now. You know what I was thinking about this before we did this show? How many rigs has that seat been on now?
It is, oh my.
3 DIYs,
yours
my
too.
rig,
yeah.
This rig, that last Sim Fix.
It's been on a profile rig.
It's been on at least 7 different rigs for sure.
Yeah.
So I bet that seat holds the record for being in the most sim rigs ever.
Absolutely. Well, still, we're going to call it 100 bucks because I think that's its replacement value. So
yeah,
you got $229 for the rig, 100 for a seat, 29 for the shifter, takes you to $358 plus shipping. So that's pretty inexpensive, especially when you consider the comfort or value of that seat.
That's our as-tested price.
And the thing is completely built for a Logitech G25, G27 wheel. So the shifter mount, like you mentioned, the wheel deck was drilled.
Yep, it is. Everything's drilled. Everything's drilled and ready for it. Does not come with the hardware to mount. Also does not come with the tools to assemble. So you need to have your own tools, and we'll get to that in the second half of the show too. Also, I talked to Bob Osteen, who is the creator of the Pegasus GTP, and he originally drilled it because I told him that, you know, our wheel, preferred wheel is the T500, and he drilled it for the T500, but the pedal deck, the room, and we'll get to that again too in the end, but the footwell area does not have enough room for the T500 pedals. And this deck and just overall design might not be enough for the bulk, the extra force feedback of a T500.
Right.
But it can be tweaked and redesigned for him. He makes all of these custom, so it's not something that's being made in a factory. He bends all the tube and stuff, so yeah, he could. And I told him about my problem with it, and we're gonna get to that also at the end, but he said you could reconfigure it. So anyway, speaking of when we come back, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, pros, cons, how we did to assemble this thing, and put it on the rev scale, final thoughts, and then we're out of here.
The T500 RS wheel and pedal set from Thrustmaster, officially licensed by Sony in Gran Turismo 5 and designed for the most die-hard racing fans. It has unmatched power and precision, it's backlash-free, and totally responsive. With this wheel and pedal set, users will go farther than ever before in their racing experience. To find out where to purchase the T500 RS, visit www.thrustmaster.com.
Welcome back to our review of the Pegasus GTP from Illusion Motorsports. Darren Ganji here with Sean Cole. And first thing up, we talked about at the top of the show, the assembly. They claim 5 minutes. Now, once you get it all unpacked, sure, probably about 5 minutes to assemble.
Right.
Took me about 15 minutes to unpack it though, which is a really good thing though, because it came very nicely packaged. Actually, there was only one little ding, and that was in the seat deck, and a bit of the MDF had come off on the corner.
Right.
Didn't render it useless though, so it still worked fine. But came packaged very nicely. So 15 minutes just to unpack the thing. And then once I did, there's these color-coded stickers with a number to tell you basically which tube went into which socket. And I actually had one of them backwards, and I'm like, this is not working. And it was this one, I think, right here, and I was tweaking it. I'm like, this'll fit. I'm like, wait a second, 1, 2, 1, 2. Flipped it around, and then it fit perfect. So the assembly instructions weren't that detailed, but with the numbers and the stickers, it made it
pretty easy.
Very easy to assemble.
You will need a few tools right out of the bat. You're gonna need a snip or a pair of scissors just to kind of undo the zip ties to get it ready. You're also gonna need a screwdriver. You need a rubber mallet to kind of knock those pipes all the way into the fittings.
You don't need a rubber mallet. You can pound on it, but it just makes it easier.
Beyond that, you're just gonna need, we just used an adjustable wrench to tighten down the wheel deck. And then depending on what you're doing with your seat, we needed a drill to drill some holes and some hardware to mount the seat as well.
Drill came in handy too to attach the screws for the shifter, because you just have to cinch the shifter in with screws. So having the drill and being able to use it, and just to you know, attach all of these screws in here. The drill just made it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and speaking of making it easier, our seat did have the sliders. So when we installed it, it wasn't just putting the seat to that deck, but it was putting the sliders onto the deck seat on the sliders.
Recommend getting a seat with sliders as well, so you have that extra adjustability. Even though you can get it dialed in for yourself if you're the only one using it by just bolting, you know, without sliders. It does raise it a little bit though too.
True.
So that's just added bonus or not, depending on your height, I guess.
Absolutely. So that's pretty much everything about this rig that you need to know, other than our opinions, and that starts with the pros and cons. You want to get things going on that?
Yeah, let's go with the pros. And first thing, very affordable. Great starter rig, you know, for the price we're talking about, $358 as tested. Probably about $400, I would say, after all is said and done. That's a pretty affordable rig. And the next pro, it's lightweight. So if you need something that you need to move around, put away, you know, not keep in a, you know, static position or corner of your house,
Right.
it's easy to put away.
Absolutely.
Even with the seat and the wheel attached, it still makes it fairly lightweight.
Pick it up and put it over your head and carry it around.
Exactly.
Another pro is the articulating wheel deck, and it's not just the up and down, but it's got some angle adjustment. I mean, you got a lot of freedom there on that wheel deck, and that's real nice.
Yep.
Another pro, it's completely ready for the Logitech G27. So it's pre-drilled for both the pedals and the wheel, and it has the additional shifter option, which is also drilled for the G27 shifter.
Yep. And this is another pro, and I'm not sure how accommodating Bob's going to be. He said he could change it, but he could tailor it to fit you. So I would imagine if you get in touch with him and say, listen, I watched the review on Inside Sim Racing, and I have a T500. I like your design, but I want a, you know, taller footwell. He says he can do it. So now, if not, this one's stock out of the gate. I mean, I was able to drive in it pretty comfortably. But I'd say somebody under 5'10" or so is going to fit really well in this. I mean, you could attest to that. I mean, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I got in there and I had the perfect dimensions very easily in that rig. Next pro is that it's pretty stable. So, I mean, you get your Logitech wheel on there, get it all bolted down. I'll tell you what, you're not thinking about the rig, you're thinking about driving. And in that good driving position, you know, it's very natural.
Yep.
Another pro is that using your own seat could feasibly keep the cost down. So if you've already got an old seat around, or we were playing around with different chairs, some office chairs.
This chair.
Yeah, and seeing what we could get away with. So ultimately, you could get away pretty cheap there.
Yep. And that's pretty much going to do it for the pros, except for we also said it's a great starter rig. So great for somebody that's, you know, starting, you know, on a tight budget and wants to get into sim racing and doesn't want to spend $1,000 on a rig or whatever.
Yeah.
It's great for that. And that's going to take us to the cons, and we've mentioned it a few times, and especially for somebody my height with a size 12 shoe, the footwell is very tight. Again, he can accommodate and build it differently, but the one that he's shipping now, that if you ordered one and got it, that footwell is very tight. As a matter of fact, I ended up going for the brake and sliding against that and missing my braking zone once or twice because of that. So definitely can hurt your braking.
Next con is that it's only available in America. So unless you contact them and make some special arrangements, that's a limited distribution, and I can see some people wanting it. I mean, it's a good, inexpensive rig.
Yeah, at this point, though, it'd probably cost the same amount of the rig to ship it out of the country. So next con may not be a good rig for a large person. And I'm not just talking tall like me. If you have some pounds, I weigh a little over 200 pounds, so I didn't have any problems with it.
Right.
I gotta say though, that MDF with an extra 50, 60 pounds on it, I don't know.
Yeah.
And just the overall rig. And so big guys, and maybe he can configure it for a bigger guy.
Right.
But I'd say it's, again, for the smaller stature.
I agree. I like that about rigs.
He fits in all of them.
And that takes us to our next con, and it's directly related to that. And the wheel deck might not extend far enough. So if you're getting up into your range where that seat's going to be all the way back, it's going to be hard to get the wheel far enough back. It's always going to be a little bit forward. For me, that wasn't a problem at all.
And I think that's another area that could be easily adjusted or enhanced. I think he could easily extend these tubes right here to make it closer to you.
And that might come down to a custom job too. If you're extremely tall, you might want to call him and say, hey, I'm 6'7" and I need a little extra length.
Can you tweak it for me? And the last con, the MDF on both the wheel deck and the seat deck is easily scuffable, but it's actually, you just rub it off and the scuffs kind of go away because it's kind of a rough surface. Very solid though. Again, it can chip. Also, actually, our shifter deck and the seat deck both chipped. But I think that's going to take it. That's done for the pros and cons. That's it for the pros and cons. That's going to take us to the rev scale. Why don't you rev it? for your size, and then I'll rev it up for my size, and we'll have some final thoughts.
You know, it's really tough when we look at the variety of rigs that we've had. They're all so uniquely different, and it's sort of comparing and taking everything into consideration. And with that said, this rig is an 8 for me. In some ways, it would be more impressive, but in other ways, it's not. And anyway, 8. And
for me, in its current state, I'd say, I don't know, man. I just drove it with that, you know, and this is in its current state. I would have a hard time even giving it a 7, because I guess I could get used to it and just, but if my foot's gonna rub against that middle bar and stop me from braking, which is the most important part of racing for the most part. Right. Yeah, being fast is one thing, but you have to get slowed down.
Yeah.
But fix that one problem, and it's a solid 8 for me too.
Yeah.
You know, and even driving it, I was getting used to it. So, so that's gonna take us to our final thoughts, and I'd say this is a good job for a first go-around from Bob and his company, Illusion Motorsports. Again, it's a great starter rig. Really, it's perfect for a G wheel right now, and for somebody under 5'10". So if you're both of those situations, Logitech G wheel and under 5'10", I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
Other than that, my complaints are really in that footwell, and it just doesn't provide enough space, for different types of pedals and larger feet.
Right.
So, yeah, good job.
And that takes me to my final thoughts. And I got to, right out of the bat, this is not an expensive rig. It's not overly beautiful, although it actually looks better than I thought it would when I read its description. But this is not a high-end rig, and don't be comparing this to some of the high-end rigs that we've seen on our show. And with that said, I don't think somebody who's going to be buying a T500 is going to be in the market for this rig. They don't go hand in hand.
Right, you don't put a $500 wheel on a $200 rig.
Exactly. And that's not who they're looking for with this rig. They're looking for the DF-GT or even the Logitech G27 because they've come down in price. And it's a perfect fit for that rig. And I think those guys, even for me in the size of my feet, I need to run in socks. I couldn't use my shoes. There wasn't enough room even with my smaller feet.
Rubbing up against those bars,
Exactly. Huh? And that just kind of shows you maybe it's sort of a gamer's rig or more in that mentality because they're not accommodating heavy usage. But, I mean, I'm blown away by the rig, ultimately. I kind of didn't think I was going to like it, and then it ended up giving me some really good lap times because I was just comfortable, quick, easy out of the gate, and simple.
Yep. So, and it took away, you didn't have to worry about the rig wobbling. So, I agree. And again, great job, Bob. And I'd like to thank you, Bob, for sending us the Pegasus GTP. If you want to check out illusionmotorsports.com, he also has a full stock car setup.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a monitor stand that he's selling too. So you can check him out at illusionmotorsports.com. Subscribe to us if you like this show and our channel in general. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Tell your friends. Share this show with them. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. And join us at our website for conversation at isrtv.com. So anything else, Sean, before we go?
Nope.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. For Sean Cole, I'm Darren Ganji. We'll see you guys next time.